Please forgive me if there might be some jump or something a little I'm doing go along. Uh, I done this book I wrote, Brave New Money, Schönes Neues Geld, which obviously harks back to Davis Huxley and his Brave New World, which is describing a society under a totalitarian world government. Everything's nice, no wars, no no struggle, no fights, but it's totalitarian. So it's called A Brave New World, but everybody who reads it thinks it's terrible. And that's a little bit what I think the future is of money is going to bring to us. It's basically the same promises that are in Aldous Huxley's book. So it could be a wonderful world, but if you look at it and take it all together, what's in it, it's totalitarian. I'll just briefly core of uh, showing that the trend observe and that we read about a lot in the papers of less and less use of cash and more digital money, that this is actually not a trend that just happens, but that there is a global campaign to just do that, to push back cash. Uh, I'll show who the drivers are of this campaign and what the means are. It's done by stealth. That's why I had to write the book about it, because you only see some of it at the surface, but not what's going on underneath. It's inside it, and that's in. It is not present in the consciousness of most people. So I'll look at it all from that angle, knowing that there is other angles, but those other angles are well understood. So crazy people, but it's actually a term coined by Visa and MasterCard, the credit card companies. Around 2005, they started to use that aggressively, and they did 2010. But very usually much, but vis-a-vis to it. So basically, goals were there openly. Cash is in their way, and they want to get rid of. The EU Commission, just to name an example, was often present at the conferences where they espoused this goal and showed quite a lot of sympathy. The the of a study by McKinley, there is that war on cash, and that it's necessary the governments cooperate together with the private companies from the financial system to bring about the demise of cash. There were many more. They also gave recommendations on how governments could help in that war on cash. I can't go into the details, but what they were suggesting is all the things that we are starting to see now or have been seeing recently, like getting rid of big notes, prohibiting sales on the fees of the credit card company, to the card users. All these help digital money back cash. Something happened around 2010. You didn't hear the word war on cash anymore, because ostensibly Visa and MasterCard, the main drivers of this, they decided, oh, we don't care about our profit so much anymore. What we want to do now is rid the world of poverty, get poor countries, and we'll do that by developing their financial. It's called financial inclusion. And we'll promise if there's financial inclusion, then we'll eradicate poverty. I'm not exaggerating. It's the promise that we hear until today, that financial inclusion will help eradicate poverty. So that was the switch over from the war on cash for profit's sake to the war on cash. The means are the same, just now called financial inclusion, in order to help the poor. And I mentioned that it's a report on cooperating, because that's what governments did. Under the leadership of the US government, in 2009, at a G20 meeting, there was a call on on something called the Consultative Group to Assist the Poor, which is a group that is made up mainly of the US government in the guise of the World Bank, Visa and MasterCard, the warriors against cash until then, Citigroup, and Silicon Valley, it was Bill Gates with his very rich, how you call it, Stiftung, foundation, richest in the world. Bill Gates is over this. So they were called on developing a strategy to get ahead with financial inclusion for the G20. So Visa and MasterCard basically were called to tell governments how they could help to bring everybody in the system. That's basically the theme of the whole thing, bringing the world and everybody in it into the formal financial system. That is this thing. The whole thing is about bringing everybody into the formal financial system, which, and I use the words of protagonists, one from Silicon Valley, that's Dan Schulman, the CEO of PayPal, the leading financial intermediary for the internet. Both quotes from a financial inclusion forum in Washington in 2015. Asked, what is that financial? And he said, financial inclusion is a buzzword for bringing people into the financial system. And Bill Gates, in his presentation, system that is one angle of it. He said governments must make sure that all financial transactions take place in a digital system in which the government can find any transaction that it should know about and can block it. One angle. If people are in that system, everything's recorded. All digital money transfers are recorded. They are stored for decades. There's rules that even our banks, they have to store, like we have what's called Vorratsdatenspeicherung for for telephone data and stuff like that. Very much talked and thought about. Transactions, because banks are required now to store them after they end their relationship, and their relationship with the customer goes on for decades itself. So everything is stored basically for your whole life, and can be called up at some time. Much worse with PayPal. If you look at their declarations, what they do with the data, it's absolutely scary. It goes to everybody. There's like many dozens of companies, including the worst of them, that you really don't want to have it, like data aggregators like Axiom in the US. Their business is to just collect everything about everybody that can be collected. They have files for literally billions of people, which are full. But like for you and me, they have files that have thousands of data points. So PayPal data goes there, and it even says that it can be passed along by these companies that get it to anybody in the whole world. So you can be sure that any PayPal data is in any data bank that is there in. So that's the beauty of bringing people into the system. They're there, they can be controlled, and you've probably read about the fuss with Iran and wanted to withdraw cash from the Bundesbank, and the American ambassador just came out and said, no, don't do that. Of course, they had all right to get the money, and the Bundesbank was obliged to give it. It was their money. It was legal. The sanctions of the Americans are not legal. They are just one-sided, and they just want to force the whole world to stick to them. But Bundesbank didn't hand out the money. Very recently, a couple of days ago, it was in the news that Telekom cut off the phone lines of an Iranian bank in Hamburg, saying that they can't pay anymore. That was the pretext. Because of these financial sanctions, they can't pay their bills, so we cut their phone lines. Of course, they didn't want business with them anymore because they're afraid of the Americans, because the Americans can look into their services. Oh my God. They can look into everything that happens, so they'll know that Telekom gets money from a bank, and so they can sanction them. So blocking. Profit on them, and so that's their war, and that's why they're in it. And so I'll just gonna get in the main words now, which is that on the recommendation and with the strategy paper of that consultative group to assist the poor, i.e. Visa and MasterCard, the G20 a year later in 2010 founded the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion. And nobody's heard about it. You can always translate financial inclusion without much error in getting rid of cash. So that there is a partnership of the 20 most important governments, including Germany, including China, where we're working together to get rid of cash. 2 years later, a Better Than Cash alliance was formed. The same companies again, that's Visa, MasterCard, Citigroup, and Bill Gates and the US government, this time directly. They have the goal very clearly to get rid of cash. And as soon as they're founded, they were declared the main partners of that Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion. So that tells you already what the real target of financial inclusion is. And they work on that and do it. But hardly anybody knows is with the international standard setters. The IMF came out with a paper, The Macroeconomics of Decashing, where they recommended governments how to go along with that war on cash, and that was to use indirect means, to never admit that we're doing it, because citizens won't like it. And the main indirect means are the international standard setters, like the Financial Action Task Force and others that are related to the BIS. These are informal groups by the governments that form them. And they've been told by the G20 to include the goal of financial inclusion, i.e. getting rid of cash, in their standard setting. And they've been told to let the Better Than Cash Alliance help them in that. So when they come together and set their standards on how banks should deal with the danger of laundering, they do that with the explicit target of making it cash hostile. And that's what they do. And that's the reason why if you go to a bank and want to do something with cash, all red flags go up. Because cash is in all those lists the main reason why you have to be worried about money laundering, or the first anyway. And so banks hardly don't do that anymore, because if somebody wants to make a cash transfer, like doesn't have an account, put in 20 euros to have it transferred, then the bank, even if it's just 20 euros, they have to money laundering. That's coming down from the FATF, and they have to copy their passport. They have to create a file about that customer. They have to document that they did everything to prevent money laundering. And of course, they don't want to do it for 50 cents that they would gain on that. So they either don't do it, or they charge 15 euros, literally, for every small transaction of that kind. And that's why it's getting so hard to use cash. Just one more example, there's a rule by the EU Commission that's also coming from there, that every coin that a bank takes in from their customers, from businesses, has to be checked for counterfeiting before they can pass it out again, which is, of course, from the real purpose, complete nonsense, because nobody's forging 1 cent, 2 cents, or even an euro. It's not happening, but it works perfectly in order to make it expensive to deal with cash. So banks don't want to do it anymore. They make it expensive, and that way companies prefer digital money, and people get brought into the system. I think with that, I'll end. Just one remark, which I can't elaborate anymore. The book is going to be translated into Chinese, and I'll be curious to see how the translation will be, because the Chinese systems, the Chinese are very good, and they are also participant in this partnership. They're very good at that, and they're really already putting this totalitarian system that I have in mind into heard about the social credit system. That inputs from this bringing into the financial system, use all the data to educate their citizens to be good citizens, just in the Huxley world. And it's just all the elements are taken from the West and just used in that way. And it can be used in the same way on our side, and I think it's going into that direction. Thank you very much.